It's something that I discovered when I came here because, in fact, I did 2 years of a master's degree here in Strasbourg in an American university where we met. And almost like a joke, I thought I was going to go back to Canada, and almost like a joke, I thought I would go out into the park of the Château de Portales and do a French landscape, just like as a kind of a novel idea to do, is because landscape painting is not well looked upon, and it's got to do with kitsch, and it's kind of a taboo almost. And I thought I would kind of provoke this taboo just before I was going to go back to Canada and say that I'd done it. And I set myself up in the park of the Château de Portales, and I started to do a painting. And suddenly something struck me. That's what I should be doing. That's what I should have been doing all along. It was correct. I was in the right place at the right time, doing what I should be doing. And I've received a lot of flack, I think, throughout the years, but it came from a really strange, unexpected angle, and it stayed with me. And over the years, I got used to it, and I found out that it was there's meaning in it, and it's useful, and it's a good subject, and it's wide-ranging, and it can overflow into abstract painting, and it's a really supple subject, and rich and ever enduring.
One of the earliest, therefore, landscape paintings that I saw was of the Château de Portales, and I find that looking now at what you've done since, the basics of your landscape technique, if you like, are already there. That there is this minute detail on just a very small part, a focus on, and then a great misty stillness, mystery in a large part of the painting. Even then, when you say this was really almost the first landscape painting.
Yeah. It's got to do with a discipline of looking. It's got to do with a discipline of a way of looking at things. And what happens when we look at something, we only look at one thing at a time. And it comes quite close to martial arts in a certain way, because you have to focus on one point and take everything into account around that point. And I spent a lot of time these recent months at the golf course. I was invited to paint at the golf course, and so I was amazed by watching the people set themselves up and look at the landscape and focus on that one part of the landscape. And I realized that it's akin to what I try to do in the discipline of painting, and it's got to do also with archery and all those kinds of things. And I was helped a lot when I was a student to develop a discipline, not only in painting but in looking at things. This fascination with observation and visual perception has stayed with me, and is a very important part of what I'm about, and where I came from, and what I try to pass on to my students and to the people that look at my paintings. All of those things have an influence on it, but I think it's got more to do with an undercurrent of what's going on in my life, and maybe not even in my conscious life, I think. And but I know that some things have happened, some accidents have happened, little accidents in painting. For example, I can remember working on a landscape that just wasn't working at all. And then I just went over the whole thing with a big, thick blue color, and started to work on it again, and then realized that the blue harmonized everything, brought everything together. And then my paintings got really dark, and maybe it was to do with a period of my life where things weren't too certain, and painting is obviously a reflection of what's going on in my life, and but it's not an illustration. It's more of an undercurrent of things that kind of surface without me really looking for them, and they come out, and I look at them, and I observe them, and I'm surprised quite often by what comes out, and then also geographically. I mean, if you paint in Alsace or in Egypt, you have a subject that's entirely different in a chromatic sense, and that has an influence, and it kind of it makes you explore the palette. You go into places of the palette that you wouldn't go in normal circumstances, and those things, these are residual things that come back into the painting. For example, my time in Egypt brought something new into my palette, and the paintings that I've done since in Alsace have been much brighter and much kind of colorful. And but it's not something that I do on a conscious level. It's more intuitive than anything else. I think that the things that you're talking about are almost almost drawings, and I'm drawing with paint, and I'm trying to get close to the tonality of the subject and the subtlety of the tonality, not through drawing but through paint, but in a drawing frame of mind, and to more focus on lights and darks, and the colors are almost superfluous in a certain way. I mean, it could be a blue for me. It could be a blue for a face, or something like that. But it's got to do with tonality rather than color. I like the idea of floating between drawing and painting through this kind of mixture of approaches. I've kind of avoided it, to tell you the truth, because I think architecture is something that I like to draw, because it is like you have to structure the drawing. You have to structure the drawing of an architecture, it's like doing scales on a piano. You have to get it right. You have to get it perfect. And drawing is supple, and you can change it. You can correct it. You can go back on what you said in the first place, and slowly come up with something that's correct and in terms of perspective and those technical those aspects. And it's kind of like sharpening my eye. And with this exercise, I take that into landscape, and I try to do the same exercise with painting a tree in perspective. I mean, you know, why not? It was an idea that came from somebody who had written a book about the cathedral, who somebody asked me if I would offer him a drawing of the cathedral, and it's something that I hadn't thought about. I love the cathedral, and it's really huge part of my life, and through the course that you taught us especially, I began to feel that it was approachable somehow or other, and that it could be part of my production in terms of artistic approaches. I think that maybe that's what interests me the most, is that it's such a powerful subject. I love powerful subjects. It puts you in your place, and you try anyway, even though you feel completely squashed and helpless in front of such an enormously deep and powerful and heavy monument. To try it anyway. I like that kind of Don Quixote attitude towards absolutely daunting subject matter, like, you know, the Egyptian temples and things like that. I think that it's maybe where, and even, you know, a concentration camp is an absolutely daunting subject, but why not? Why should you not try it? Even if it's a disaster, it doesn't matter. You've tried it, and that's, I think that where we should feel free to try these things, even though it's maybe destined for the dustbin. In fact, I saw an exhibition of Peter Dreyer, who's a German painter who lives in Freiburg. I talked about taboos earlier, like landscape is a taboo in modern art, or was seen to be, or like even doing nude paintings or flowers or whatever. It's kind of taboos, and that interests me. Where do those taboos come from? Who wrote these taboos? Who's saying that we can't do this or we can't do the other? And one taboo is you should never repeat yourself. I was subject to this taboo, and I was always trying to renew things, and I realized that I was kind of going off the deep end in a certain way, because I was running out of ideas and of what to do. And so I saw this exhibition of Peter Dreyer where repeating himself was the subject. He's done thousands of paintings of the same glass. And it is absolutely fabulous oeuvre. And he liberated me from this taboo of not repeating myself. And that a series is like writing a book. You write page after page. You don't write the whole book at once. And a series tells a story. There's a beginning, a middle, and an end. And you don't know where it's going to go. And, but it's always based on the same principle, the same idea. And it's, rather than going in a horizontal, superficial search, you go into more of a vertical search. And you try to dig as deep as you can into one subject. And you don't know what's going to come out, you don't know how far it's going to go before you hit rock bottom, but it becomes an adventure, a series. And also, it gets you away from having to make a painting that has everything in it, and because it's almost impossible. But in a series, you can evoke all kinds of different aspects of something. Reality is like a diamond. You can only see one part of the surface at a time, but there's so many surfaces that you don't see and you never see. But in a series, you can turn things around and explore things and be surprised by the most banal and simple subject, such as a glass of water. the idea of a challenge I like a lot in painting. Like it's almost like an athletic approach where you set the bar really high and without any real knowledge that you can attain what you have set out to do. And I did these self-portraits a couple of years ago. I set myself up in the Gallery Nicole Buch and I did 100 self-portraits over a period of 10 days. Each self-portrait took an hour. So I worked 10 hours a day for 10 days on making self-portraits. And my hope in doing that was that I wanted to go beyond what I thought I could do and go into the unknown and push the limits. And I think that things get interesting when you push the limits. When things get interesting around the frontier of what you think is possible and what you think is impossible. Because we're quite often surprised that what we think we can do and where the limits are is more elastic than we've thought. And so this series of self-portraits was just to push the limits and see if I could do it, and then look back on it afterwards and say, wow, that was interesting. That was now I know something I didn't know about myself, and not in a kind of know thyself. I think is a pretty important way of getting to know everything about everything else, as the oracle said, and myself is everybody's self in a certain way, and it was in fact, in a strange way, a preparation, without knowing it, for a series of paintings that I did in the concentration camp. Yeah, it was really difficult, but at the same time, it was nothing compared to what the people that were imprisoned there had to live through, and it was nothing. It was nothing. It was just a drop in the ocean, it kind of gave me this kind of this feeling, this vertiginous feeling of the suffering that went on there. I was there because I was free to do it, and I think that we should do what we're free to do, and if we're free to do something, we have to do it. It almost becomes like a duty, and for me, that was the most important part of my creative life, was going to do that work in the concentration camp. It was so enriching, and so it just evoked so many important questions that I'd never been able to come to grips with before, and I think that it gave a certain weight to the work that I've done since, and I think that art's mission is to change mentalities, and through the emotion that it evokes, to make a better world, so that people are enriched by art and are touched, and perhaps go about things in a different way. I know that art has done that for me, looking at a Mark Rothko painting or a Giacometti sculpture, or a beautiful hieroglyph. These things deepen us. They dig into us, and they give us more room to be generous and open and conscious, to be present, and and somehow full of love. I think the difficult part, the part that's really emotional for me is to start working. That's where the real work for me takes place. Once, you know, I can be almost suicidal before I start to do a painting, because you feel so diminished by the task and by the impossibility of being able to create something from nothing, or to interpret the beauty of nature or whatever. You can, I mean, I can go into almost a depression before I start, and it's scary. It's really scary sometimes. But to set things up and to go at it anyway, and to overcome all these mental and psychological and spiritual obstacles, and just touch the brush to the canvas, it all disappears. It just, like it evaporates all this anguish and this hopelessness, and suddenly it's like a magic wand. It sounds just ridiculous, but you are nourished all of a sudden, and you're recompensed by doing it and going into the act of it. And of course, throughout, and probably this emotion of getting to the end of your tether almost mentally, maybe comes out in the painting afterwards as a kind of a release.
You certainly work incredibly rapidly.
Yeah.
When you see on the video on your site,
Yeah.
and that's perhaps releasing some of this pent up fear almost.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like a spring being squashed down, and then suddenly springs back. And I think that I like an active, powerful painting. When I go into a museum, it's those kinds of paintings that make me want to paint.
You're thinking, I'm sure, of the Isenheim altarpiece.
Yeah, the Isenheim altarpiece is really something exceptional, and just to think of the freedom and the depth of emotion that Grunewald was able to touch on, it's like he's really showing us the way to the mission of painting is through the compassion that he was able to express through that masterpiece. Yeah, that's a really good example, the Isenheim altarpiece.
Sometimes some critics, actually Carpentier has commented on the spirituality unless it comes from your paintings. Is that something that you're aware of?
Yeah, the thing is, I think that for me, this sounds all kind of maybe confused perhaps, but it's this painting and art and spirituality are synonymous, and they've always been synonymous. I think that since the cave paintings in Lascaux, it's the spirituality. I think that man hasn't created art, art has created man, and I think that this kind of hovering spirituality of the universe suddenly came down and touched man and said, paint, draw, express what you have, the feels that you can express what you fear, what you hope, what you desire, and I think that this created civilized man. This power of the universe coming through man to make him through the idea that he became quite conscious that his his life would end, his mortality, that he became conscious of love, that it's just not we're not just on the earth to reproduce, it's to communicate and to defend and to bring up the others and help others through our caring, and this became civilized man, respect, and I think this all kind of combined to become art. And I think that it hasn't changed since. I think that all great artists, it's a spiritual adventure. And otherwise, it's just, decorative things to put on the wall, because it's better to have something on the wall than just to have an empty wall. But for me, doing it is, you kind of go into this tradition of spiritual, it's kind of like an order almost, a spiritual order of wanting to find meaning and wanting to find intensity, and to touch onto the power of existence. I think that through painting and through creative acts, this is a possibility. I think art also has got to do with putting yourself in a position, putting yourself in readiness for something that might come up, something interesting or rich or meaningful. And so I'm kind of biding my time by working, and who knows what will come up. Maybe somebody will have an idea that, I don't know, I should go and paint on the moon or something like that, and I couldn't say no.
That should almost be the end. Very good end to the interview, that one.